At exactly 3 a.m. on June 6, 2025, the night sky over Russia's Engels Air Base was eerily silent. But high above, 17 Ukrainian OSA drones glided through the darkness like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. These drones had been in the air for 6 relentless hours, crossing 750 kilometers of enemy territory without GPS, without radio communication, and for the past half hour, without a single human guiding them. They were now operating purely on AI, moment away from proving that a few $1,000s worth of parts from AliExpress could outsmart and overpower a $500 million Russian air defense network, and potentially ground an entire fleet of nuclear bombers. As the lead drone's thermal camera scanned the ground, it locked onto the glowing heat signature of Engels' massive fuel depot. But this wasn't a crude DIY operation. The sensor data was fed into an AI neural network trained on over 10,000 satellite images of this very facility. The AI didn't just see the depot, it understood it. Every pipeline, every storage tank, every weak point. Through a grainy 640 by 480 pixel image, the AI outlined 4 massive fuel tanks, glowing white-hot against the cold Russian soil. It wasn't looking for targets blindly. It analyzed temperatures, identified which tanks had just been refilled, and knew precisely which one, tank number 4, held the most volatile and destructive vapor pressure. Here's where things turned unsettling. Each of the 17 drones ran this exact same analysis independently, like a swarm of identical minds reaching the same cold, logical conclusion. No human control, no central command. Each drone decided on its own. Tank number 4 had to be the first to go. But identifying a target was just the beginning. The drones started choreographing their attack, adding their serial numbers to flight paths to avoid collisions. Drone 1 would hit from 270 degrees, Drone 2 from 275, each vector offset just enough to maximize the overlapping blast radius while avoiding mid-air crashes. They weren't just flying drones. They were autonomous kamikazes working together with chilling precision. As they closed in, their cellular connections, piggybacking off hijacked Russian SIM cards, flickered to a single bar. Soon, they would dive below 50 meters altitude, becoming fully autonomous. From that moment, their human operators back in Ukraine would be mere spectators. The $89 flight controllers, cheap knockoffs of Pixhawk modules bought online, were now the brains of this mission. Ultrasonic sensors constantly calculated collision avoidance, creating a protective bubble around each drone. It had worked flawlessly for 6 hours. Now it just needed to hold for 5 more minutes. At 10 kilometers out, the formation transformed. What had been a loose swarm suddenly snapped into a deadly attack matrix. 7 drones climbed to strike the thin steel roofs of the tanks. 5 leveled off to target the upper walls where fuel vapor collected. The remaining 5 descended to attack the weld seams near the tank bases, the structural Achilles heel. Overhead, the Russian S-400 radar swept the skies, oblivious to the threat right under its nose. At 50 meters altitude, these drones were hidden by the curvature of the Earth, invisible to the radar's line of sight. To the operators, everything seemed normal. Too normal. No planes in the sky, no birds, no chatter. Just an unsettling calm. But deep inside the drones, timers ticked down. At pre-programmed coordinates, their autopilots would take full control. No human could abort them now. No electronic warfare could jam them. Each drone was committed to its target with robotic indifference. One by one, they lost their cellular links, switching into autonomous attack mode. 17 flying bombs, now beyond anyone's control. Engels Air Base boasted an air defense network worth more than Ukraine's entire drone program. The S-400 systems, designed to shoot down stealth jets and ballistic missiles, couldn't see these plastic invaders until it was far too late. Even at maximum sensitivity, their radar couldn't lock onto a drone the size of a large bird flying at low altitude. Their threat libraries were filled with fighter jets and cruise missiles, not $400 quadcopters moving at Cessna speeds. Closer to the depot, for Pantsir-S1 air defense units, stood guard. They were designed to swat missiles out of the sky with surgical precision, but they faced the same problem. Their radars required a target with a radar cross-section of at least 0.1 square meters. The OSA drones reflected 1/10 of that. It was like trying to shoot a mosquito with a sniper rifle, possible in theory, hopeless in practice. The Russians had layered GPS jammers around the base, flooding the air with fake signals to send Western drones veering off course. But Ukraine's OSA drones didn't care. They navigated like it was 1943, using magnetic compasses, accelerometers, and dead reckoning. You can't jam what doesn't use GPS. The defenders had one final hope: their automated fire suppression systems. On paper, it looked formidable. Thousands of liters of foam, heat sensors, and a network of deluge nozzles. But paper isn't reality. The foam had expired. Half the nozzles were rusted shut. And worst of all, the system was designed to handle a single tank fire, not a coordinated drone swarm. At 3:03 a.m., one operator finally noticed something wrong. A strange contact appeared on his radar screen, moving too slow for a missile, too fast for a bird, and far too low for anything friendly. When he zoomed in with the electro-optical turret, his stomach dropped. Drones, 17 of them, spread across a 3-kilometer front, closing fast. He smashed the auto-engage button. Missiles roared off the Pantsir launchers, but the drones were too small, too erratic. The first missile streaked past, missing by just 3 meters. Its proximity fuse failing to detect the tiny radar signature. The drones executed pop-up maneuvers, confusing the missile guidance systems programmed for predictable aircraft behavior. The cannons opened up, tracers lighting up the night sky, but hitting a drone-sized target at that distance was a fool's errand. It was like throwing darts at a fly in the dark. By sheer luck, one drone was destroyed by a lucky missile strike. But the remaining 16 pressed on, recalculating their formation in milliseconds. The defenders, out of missiles and their gun barrels glowing red-hot, could only watch as the swarm began its final descent. At exactly 3:08 a.m., the lead drone slammed into tank number 4. The shape-charged warhead punched through the steel roof, detonating in the vapor space. The explosion wasn't a Hollywood fireball. It was a physics-driven blast wave that turned the entire fuel tank into an expanding bomb. The roof of the tank was launched like a 15-ton steel frisbee. Flames engulfed the depot as burning aviation fuel cascaded across containment berms. One by one, more drones struck. Tank 1, Tank 7, Tank 12. Each impact was timed to cause a cascading chain reaction. The fire suppression systems kicked in, spraying foam uselessly over a quarter of the burning area before running dry in less than 2 minutes. Fire trucks couldn't approach, their paint blistered from the heat even half a kilometer away. Inside the depot, the pipeline network became a death trap. Emergency shut-off valves, designed in the 1960s, failed under the heat, feeding more fuel into the inferno. At 3:18 a.m., tank number 6 experienced a bleave, a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion, sending a shockwave across the base. But the true impact wasn't just the destruction. The specialized fuel for Russia's strategic bombers, Tu-160s and Tu-95MSs, had just been incinerated. Replacing it wasn't a matter of money. It was about time, supply chains, and chemistry. For the cost of a used car, Ukraine had just grounded Russia's nuclear bomber fleet. And as every airbase commander across Russia watched the smoke rise from Engels, one terrifying question lingered. If these plastic drones can fly 600 kilometers, and Moscow is only 700 kilometers away, what's next?